Good morning, writers, and Happy New Year's. So I've decided that I'm going to try and take a lot of things more seriously this year, YouTube being one of them. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anaya LJ, author of a dystopian fantasy series where speaking is a crime, punishable by death. If you're caught speaking, the government hunts you down and then just kills you. We can't do that around here. My characters use sign language to communicate, but as fun as talking about my book series is, that is not why I'm here today. I'm here to go over my 12 favorite books of 2025. I chose 12 because there's three mediums that I use specifically when it's time to read a book, and as you all know, ebook, paperback slash hardbacks, and audiobooks. So I figured four from each category would summarize what I think is the best that happened over 2020. We're going to start off with the hardest to carry around section, which happens to be paperbacks and hardbacks. I usually don't favor this method because between being in the military or at work, I'm always on the go and having to carry extra things around. I've got too many military pockets for on my OCP uniform, but they can't fit as many books as a phone can. So I prefer ebooks and audiobooks, but when I do have physical books, I love them down. This year, for the paperback hardback section, I read 17 books, but four of them really stood out over all of them, and I'm ready to get down into it. So, first and foremost, the one we all know and love, Legendborn. I started this book back in 2023, before my deployment, and then I realized I wasn't in the headspace to read a book with so much depth into it. I think I stopped at like chapter 17. And then I forgot all about it. I went on deployment, was overseas until almost the end of 2024. And then I came back into Legendborn. Now, I know this is a series. I know there are more books out. I have Bloodmark and Oathbound right over here. I didn't even start Legendborn until Bloodmark was out. And I probably wouldn't start Oathbound until I have at least a release date for the final book, or is it the final book? The next book in the Legendborn saga. Now, we all know and love Tracy Deonn. We love Brie Matthews. Reading this book kind of revolutionized how me, as a writer, I choose to approach things. For one, this book's in first person point of view, and only from one character, Brie Matthews, which love it. Love to see a black girl winning out here. And it can be hard writing a YA when someone isn't a young adult anymore. I write YA myself, and getting into the minds of maybe 16, 17, 18-year-olds, it's kind of beyond me at this point. I don't even agree with 22-year-olds anymore. But seeing how this all played out, the nuances and being at a PWI, trying to fit into a society that's also heavily, predominantly PWI, and learning more about your own ancestors, the legacy you've been forced into, pretty much, and all the things pretty much stolen from you. It's a lot to handle, and Brie, she handles it. It may be a little conflicting towards the middle, especially how the book ends on a little cliffhanger that, I probably should start the next book. I couldn't get this book out of my head for a while. I think I went into a reading slump right after, which is the notions of a really good book or a really bad one. This one is the former. Really great book, 10 out of 10 experience. I implore you, if you haven't started yet, go ahead and start reading. The next book is nonfiction, equally political in that sense. And this is How Democracy Dies. This goes over the certain administration after Obama and how he was elected into office and implications that come from his election and how democracies die. It was a very interesting read. Nonfiction gives you a lot of insight on the current events of the world. You recognize patterns and situations in which society keeps finding itself in, and then how you yourself can navigate that, actions you can take to mitigate it, which is voting. You can just see some patterns that still coexist to this day. 5-star read on introspection. Check it out if you haven't. I went to Virginia for the military. That's my job. And I picked up this book at a Books a Million, Six Crimson Cranes. I know this is also part of a series. However, I was in love with this from beginning to end. In love with it. A princess who doesn't want to get married. Love that for her. Evil stepmother who turns her brothers into six crimson cranes. Anytime she speaks, one of her brothers dies. As someone who has 5 brothers myself, I'm not saying a word. You can't. Even when she starts laughing, she feels like a snake pops up and that warns her, like, hey, you're cutting it kind of close. So how can she reveal who she is, that she's a lost princess everyone's searching for? How does she stop a war that's on the brink between good and evil? And then how does she engage with the dragons that are trying to restore a dragon pearl that's been stolen from them? The intrigue that was spindled I guess that's the word I'm going for. Spin all together. I love it. It's a 10 out of 10 experience. I want more of it. I just realized on the back it says the other titles, so I will be checking those out. Six Crimson Cranes. Check it out if you have a chance. Last on my physical copy list is You Reach Sam by Dustin Thao. If you're ready to cry, if you're ready to get your heart broken, if you're ready, you know how I knew I was gonna break my heart? You see this cover? See how pretty it is? These characters are just the cutest. You see it now? You see that he's gone and she's gone on this side? The premise of the story is old girl, her boyfriend gone. And she just throws away everything that has to do with him. She wants to move on. She doesn't want to grieve. She doesn't want to be stuck in the past. But she regrets it immediately after throwing everything away, distancing herself from her friends, her family, and she just thinks she's all alone in the world until she gets a call and her ex picks up. Don't know how this connection is happening. It's very speculative in the sense that someone from the afterlife is still reaching out to you. But anytime she calls, he picks up. It's wonderful. The phone, it's only through this one single phone they have. So if anything happens to that phone, it's kind of, donezo. But she tries to hold on to him for as long as possible. And he's telling her, you have to move on now. It's okay to move on from me. I still love you. Oh, I'm thinking of the lantern scene. Check it out. Please do. You won't regret it. Next, it's time for our ebooks. Now, hear me out. Ears open, eyes wide. Layna James, you've got my heart. I don't know what you put in this Fort Bender cereal that you've been feeding me, but I want more. I want more. Always Will and Sunshine with You are book 2 and 3 of the Fort Bender series, in which, well, for those of you who don't know, sometimes there's a shared world among books where they kind of intertwine, but you don't necessarily have to read book 1 to read book 2, or book 2 to read book 3, or book 3 to read book 1, if that makes sense. So they're all their own interconnected love stories where the characters know each other, sure, but each book focuses on one set of characters, how they came to be before and after. I started with Sunshine with You, the second book, as an ARC reader, and from then on, I knew she'd be my autobi author. I don't read a lot of repeat authors over the year. I like to diversify my reads so I can find newer to me authors, especially on the indie side of things. I just kept coming back to her. Always Will and Sunshine with You. They follow two sisters pretty much. I gave them 4.75 for Sunshine with You, and then a 5-star review for Always Will. They're both gems, absolute gems. That's a joke, an inside joke for Always Will. But if you want some really cute love stories, check out Layna James. Check out the Fort Bender series. You'll love it. Rhythms Blues by Kimberly Brown. You ever think about what it'd be like to be with someone famous, a celebrity, a musician, who has it all? And you're kind of more laid back, low key, you like staying home, you like taking care of things behind the scenes. That's all fine and dandy with you. You have no problem with that. What about, do you like being embarrassed by this guy who has this girl around, playing in your face, pretending like they're just friends, just coworkers, and then he tries to make y'all public only for her to embarrass both of you guys? You kind of punch her in the face as she deserves. But then you get with his producer. At the time, y'all didn't know y'all were interconnected with him in the middle. You kind of break things off and get with his producer because you're done with it. You're over it. You're not trying to be embarrassed like that. He has no respect for you. You traveled across the country just to be with him, just to make this life together. You uprooted yourself. I remember it was messy. It was so messy. I loved it. I loved it so much. If you're interested in that kind of story, go ahead and check it out. This was one of the first indie books from Left Unread Publishing with Michael the Born. Cry Voidbringer, 5 stars. 5 stars down. As soon as I learned it was void magic, as soon as I knew the main character was a child, the faceless, that's what they're called, were forced to serve under the tyranny of a now dead king and his daughter, who was making the bounds and leaps to be just like him. And then an ex-faceless, who was once faceless, Nias. She is the lover of the new queen, but also the advisor. She's the advisor. And watching her mentally think she's doing everything in her power to change things around, only to be part of the problem. Honestly, 10 out of 10. I want to read more of it. I want to read whatever comes next. Also, support indie authors. Go support Michael LeBourne under Bindery, Left Unread in print. This last segment is dedicated to my audiobook lovers. If you're like me and you love hearing it, 10 out of 10 experience. There's rarely a moment where I don't rate an audiobook 5 stars because they can sometimes grasp the nuances of the conversations and the intonations of the characters better than I could have ever done with reading it just in my head on an ebook, on a paperback, on a hardback. The voice narrators, they do their job and it pays off really well. So there was 4 books that stood out the entire time, all throughout the year. And to start that off, it's called Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. Firekeeper's Daughter is an indigenous book based on a based on a single tribe in which one girl, she is not a full tribe member at the moment. She really wants to be. She wants to be recognized. She wants to have that connection to her heritage. But when an FBI agent kind of sleeps in and notices some things have been going wrong, he goes undercover as a student and he's young enough to play it off, so no one really minds much. But she clocks it because after her, I believe it's her father, died, the FBI were investigating some things that he was connected to. And to clear her father's case to make sure that her community stays safe, she takes on the challenge. She pairs up with this FBI agent, gets down to what is going on in her community, where is these D-rugs coming from, and who's behind it all. I should have read the content warnings because I didn't expect some things to happen. Overall, it was a masterpiece. There's things you don't understand not being part of some heritages and some cultures, and the way it was woven together, I have an appreciation for a lot of things in life, and being educated on something I don't know is one of those appreciations. Even in a fictional book, there is a reflection of life and the experiences people go through. If there are more books like this, which I know there are, I will be one of the first ones to hop on the bandwagon. I will jump there and I will read until my heart's content. The next book on this list is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Raybearer, I believe, is a duology. I read the first book back in May. I also gave this one a 5-star review. It's a fiction fantasy, young adult. There's royalty, basically. And this king is practically invincible with the assistance of his court. And once they are sworn in and ordained, he becomes immune to that variation of death. The king is born with one, and then I believe he gets 12 others from his court. He's invincible unless that person betrays him. So let's say he has his necklace, and he was immune to fire when he was born, so fire can't kill him. Let's say I become part of his court, and his necklace, when I become part of his court, it glows with the poison one, which means he's immune to poisons now, unless I poison him specifically. So if I had him poisoned, he can now die. That's the end of that king. The main character, she is the product of a god and a witch, I think. But basically, everyone knows she's this girl's daughter. She looks exactly like her. But she's being accepted into the court anyway because the prince takes a liking to her, believes that she has good in her, and that she won't cause harm. But I also believe that she is bound by her mother's words in which she has to do what her mother says. And her mother wants the prince to die. It's like Ella Enchanted, you know? This one is only specifically to her mother, and mother knows best. Once again, the voice actors took it away. I think there's only one. The voice actor took it away and made the series come to life. I was there in every single page, every single betrayal, every rite of passage for the characters. When she finally got ascended to the court, acting as, I'm pretty sure she was a minister of justice, which that's really cool on her behalf. It's a duology I mentioned. The ending, I'm not going to spoil anything. I really like the storyline, the inclusion of two sides of the same coin, in which there was injustice done on the mother's part to the mother, and there is injustice that shouldn't be carried over to the children at any point in time, but it's becoming a generational trauma for both sides, especially now that the thing that the entire empire is trying to stay protected from has come back. The next book is Poster Girl by Veronica Roth. I was recommended this book because they said it's a dystopian in which sounds similar to the one that I wrote, and I want to see if this could be a possible comp title going forward in the future, if that's something I was ever interested in. But I was intrigued, so I decided why not listen to it? Why not check it out? There are some similarities. I'm not going to lie about that. But this one is post the dystopian society, in which the main character, she's technically in a prison. She was the poster girl for the revolution, in which, let's say, in Hunger Games, let's say if President Snow had someone to run the entire scene of the forefront. Let's say he had his own Katniss Everdeen. The main character was the poster girl for their own revolution, in which they lost in the end. And as a kid, I think she was 10, maybe from age of 8 to 12. So she really didn't know any better, but she's been immortalized in this role that she played as a kid. She's, I think, maybe 16, 17 now. And anyone who was part of that, I guess, authoritarian regime had been imprisoned and they could eventually earn their right back into society. She was destined to kind of stay there because she was one of the older girls. So they thought she'd been indoctrinated for too long, especially as the poster girl. They didn't think she'd survive on the outside anyway because people would recognize her. They probably don't care how old she is. She was the symbol of the group that probably murdered, if I remember correctly. So she thought she was going to be in this prison forever and just forced to live this simple life. And not that she was upset with it, but she did want more for herself. And when the opportunity came, she took it. She was given a task assigned with another person from the rebellion from her childhood who was given a chance to become a police officer because he had turned in his own family, allegedly, to the newest regime. But having to work together again after learning what happened with each other's families, how everything played out, and being on the other side of evolution in which now the society is kind of against at all times, honestly. So watching that unfold, how she got through her challenges, uncovering some mysteries that happened to her family, it's a standalone, so that was easy. That was a really powerful message that the book portrayed, especially because she didn't really know she was doing anything wrong. She was just the poster girl. But that didn't mean much in the scheme of things when it was time for the entire regime to face retribution. The last book in the series I have been waiting for forever. Forever, actually. I think I go into bookstores like every month, every other month, looking for it on the shelves, only to like check my phone and realize, oh, you don't come out for another month or another 6 months. I've been checking all year for I'm Medusa by Ayana Gray. Listening to Medusa's story before she became Medusa is something I think everyone should do. Her trial of being just a sister and daughter, of being a friend, of being a mistress accidentally, because I think she's 17 for most of the book, and Poseidon is a millennium of years old. He always knows better. The men always know better when it comes to underage girls. Medusa being human is what kind of threw most of it off for me. Not in a bad way, but in the sense that that makes sense why she can be killed. But to find out that she was the only one who's mortal among her sisters, I'm not entirely sure why. Most people in the variation I was given, most people didn't know why either. But knowing her life was going to be exponentially shorter than her sisters, her families, her parents, her friends, it made me treasure the time that she had a little more. She was desperate to get off her island where her parents, who were lesser gods after the Olympians took over, they just stayed there and they were kind of resigned to that island. A demigod was killed, and Athena took interest in Medusa, inviting her to her temple in Athens to become a priestess. The trials that she had to become a priestess were all pretty cool, honestly. The only problem I had is that jerk just kept following her. We don't want to talk about it. It's Poseidon. It's Poseidon, okay? To celebrate Medusa becoming a priestess of one of the Olympians, her family throws a banquet in her honor. She gets some nectar of the gods, I believe, which is like a stronger alcohol. Then we know what happens. It's usually depicted as in the temple of Athena when she's assaulted by Poseidon. We know the story. We know the story. Watching her go from the young innocent person who just wants to see the world to becoming the terror of the world, it's honestly rough. And I really wish they spent a little more time with her just absolutely destroying bad men. But I understand that wasn't the point of this book. It was to show her humanity has its role, and I really kind of respect that. Thank you, Ayana Gray, for such a great book. I will be reading more in the future. But that has been my 12 books of 2025, both the physical copies, the ebook copies, and the audio copies. I will put all the titles of the books below in the description. If you want to see more videos as I dive into books, things I'm going to be reading this year, and products I'm working on, or just you just want to laugh with me, come on and hang around. Give a like, give a follow, and I'll always be here. Have a good day. Bye bye.